Hello friends, it's Dave here from SaveDecks.
And I'm Sophie.
And today we are bringing you a very special list as we are talking about our favourite roguelikes or roguelites on the Nintendo Switch. It can be a divisive genre, with some not being fond of the randomly generated levels or the grinding that can come with them, but we find them to be quite addicting and a lot of fun to play.
This is a genre that is very popular among indie developers these days, and seeing that we would require playing a lot of indie games, we needed to call in help from a good friend of ours who specialises in indie games.
And he is here tonight. Please welcome Geoffrey from the Indie Gaming Guild.
Cue the Dumbledore clap.
Hi there, Dave and Sophie. Thanks so much for having me on your channel. I'm incredibly excited to be here to discuss our favorite roguelike games. It's going to be a great time.
Thank you for coming to help us with this video, Geoffrey. So, before we get started, let's go over the rules, because we all know that fun things need to have strict rules, and the first one involves you all scrolling down to that subscribe button and clicking it to make sure you keep up with our videos. That would be most spiffing of you.
Secondly, we'll be showing off some mature games. A few of our entries do contain violence and gore, so viewer discretion is advised.
Thirdly, please remember that these are just our personal picks, so before you click dislike it seeing that Binding of Isaac didn't make the list, it doesn't mean we think it's bad. We just happen to prefer the games we selected for our list. If there are any we missed out, then please feel free to let us know in the comments what your favorites are. We are very happy to receive recommendations.
We have 10 fantastic games to talk about here, and we split them into two lots of top 5s, 5 from each channel, and we don't want to spoil what's coming up on our list in the introduction, so the games you have been looking at so far are our honourable mentions. So let's take a look at our favourite roguelikes or roguelites from the Nintendo Switch.
My number 5 pick is going to be Mana Spark. I believe Mana Spark is a game that might have unfortunately been missed by a lot of roguelike fans due to it looking like just another pixel art genre game. But dig into the game and its intricacies and you can quickly find a gem of a game that is brimming with sparks of inspiration. See what I did there? Puns. Mana Spark is a typical fantasy-inspired roguelike in which our hero must dive into ever-increasingly difficult dungeons in order to grow stronger and help rebuild a new settlement. What really sets apart Mana Spark, aside from the fantastic pixel art and gorgeously designed music, is the way the AI enemies collaborate to take you down. There is a meticulous design all centered around each enemy working with one another to group up in strategic ways to attack you around every corner. These combat encounters truly felt different from any other I have experienced in recent roguelikes. Adding to this is the Souls-like combat in which you must time your attacks and dodges in order to survive longer in the more challenging dungeons. As you continue to gather resources, you take them back to upgrade your guild settlement, which in turn gives your hero more options to become stronger. Mana Spark is one roguelike game that doesn't necessarily provide a wholly new experience, but instead refines what makes the genre great, namely the combat and progression. This one is sure to spark your imagination.
Our number 5 pick is Fury Unleashed. I was given a review code by SwitchUp and that review is linked in the description. Here we have a 2D shooter taking place in a comic book. The aesthetic is really cool here as you jump from panel to panel, but it's not just the visual style. There is a fantastic fourth wall breaking story here involving the creator of the comic that you just need to see for yourself. But a visual style is nothing without great gameplay to back it up, and thankfully this game delivers in spades. The combat feels so satisfying as you run and gun your way through the pages of the comic, taking down enemies. Using that right stick to aim your bullets as well as using enemy attacks and special moves just makes you feel powerful. There's plenty of upgrades to unlock, both temporary and permanent. There's bosses to encounter, and the fact that it tracks your combo just motivates you to keep on fighting. There is an exploration aspect to each page, as you need to make your way through the panels to find a path to the next page, and the map doesn't show you where the doors are until you have entered a panel already. But I find myself just wanting to explore every panel even if I find the exit quickly, as I just enjoy the combat so much and want to collect as many rewards and EXP as possible. There is also a co-op mode as well. This game is beautiful to look at, fun to play and addictive as well, and the comic book visuals really do complement it. It is a game to marvel at.
My number 4 pick is Hades, easily one of the most talked about roguelike games in recent memory, and for good reason. It's incredibly fun and polished to a T. But in all honesty, I was late to the party when it comes to checking out Hades. This mainly comes down to the fact that I wasn't a big fan of Supergiant Games, the developers. Bastion was always lauded as this phenomenal gaming experience, but after playing through it and finishing it with my wife a couple of years ago, we both very much disliked the game, which ended up putting me off the developer, Supergiant Games. Since then, I have not played any other games from them. That is until very recently when I decided to purchase Hades for a live stream on my channel. And my goodness, am I glad that I did. Everything positive that's been said about Hades is absolutely true. It might just be one of the most polished and refined roguelites, even more surprisingly because it's a Nintendo Switch console exclusive. From the hyper-fluid and kinetic combat, to the permanent progression options, to the sheer artistry on display, from the graphics, to the music, to the voice acting, Hades shines forth with an impeccable design. Obviously it's not in my top 3, but that is simply down to the fact that the other 3 left on my portion of the list hooked me for longer periods of time. Hades is absolutely worth your time and attention, but it can also be a tough game to get into due to an overwhelming amount of context and content on display. Sure, the gameplay aspects are explained well, but I found I would often get so overwhelmed by the choices on offer here. If you have the time to devote to learning all of its intricacies though, Hades will continue to offer you a bountiful spread of gameplay nuance, storytelling prowess, and that just one more run mentality.
Our number 4 pick is Ape Out. Ape Out is a top-down beat-em-up roguelike where you take control of an ape trying to escape from captivity. How do we do that? We go on a rampage and smash people into walls. The guards will shoot on sight, but there is time to reach them and grab them before they have time to pull the trigger. You can also hold them as a human shield where they will randomly shoot, which you can use to your advantage. Every time you die, the room layout changes. My favourite part of the game is when you die and it zooms out and you see the word dead and the line traces your progression. It doesn't mean much as it will be different layout next time, but it does enough to motivate you to try again. The art style is fantastic, with a top-down view, and I like the colours of the ape and the guards, and the splatters of blood looks nice and gruesome. Your blood is a different colour to the guards, and the amount you drop in a trail behind you indicates how much damage you took, and it is very contrasting to the background. Visually, this game looks like the title card of a spy-esque movie. Not to mention the chaotic jazz music that plays as you escape. It starts off quiet as you try to stealth your way, and then gets more and more chaotic as you get noticed and shot at. There is great use of percussion that suits the graphical style and keeps you motivated for the action. This is definitely a game to go ape at.
My third pick for this list would be METAVERSE Keeper, a highly underrated roguelike game that more people need to check out. To be quite clear, METAVERSE Keeper is actually a recent genre example that helped get me hooked into roguelites. There is simply a great ease of access to this game that not many other roguelites can top. METAVERSE Keeper's opening exposition is simple and brief, quickly discussing a cataclysm that shook the core of the metaverse and its bastion. A ragtag group of heroes must now dive into the metaverse in order to fend off the encroaching evil and uncover its secrets. What hooked me right away is the lovely art style, almost looking anime, but with an added layer of dimensional depth to help the characters and environments pop off the screen. METAVERSE Keeper is an all-around charming roguelike experience, and one that generously rewards you both in terms of exploration, weapon variety, and progression. I think what I find most enticing about METAVERSE Keeper is that you constantly feel like you are getting stronger. As you explore the randomly generated zones teeming with dangerous baddies, you come across swords, magic wands, guns, spells, and so much more. Each new zone seems to bring a plethora of secrets, as well as items hidden in pink crystals, chests that explode with orbs and weapons. The orbs can then be used to purchase specific and highly creative installations that buff your character. And if that wasn't enough, back at your home base, you have a blueprint, skill tree, and an ability tree that constantly give you new ways to play and become stronger. If you are looking for the first good time roguelite, then METAVERSE Keeper absolutely delivers the goods.
Our number 3 pick is Road Redemption. I know this isn't one of the technically best games out there, but remember, this is a personal list. and this is the roguelike that hooked me the most. I just couldn't put this one down. At first this reminded me of games like Road Rash with the motorbike gameplay and bashing your opponents, but there's a fair bit of depth here. You are presented with a race in a Mad Max style world, and your objective can be something like win a race or kill a certain number of enemies. The track layout is random each time, but you'll find familiar assets in each race. You don't need to complete the objective before the track is over, just surviving is enough to progress, but you want to beat the objective to gain rewards and upgrade your character to make the next race that bit easier. The controls feel good, and whacking people is always satisfying with a range of weapons to use too. Planting bombs on other road users is my favourite, but using that big old pipe works well too. This game can be incredibly glitchy at times, and I know people can criticise that, but in an insane arcade style game like this, I find the technical issues only add to it. This may not rank among the best roguelites out there for many, but for the time I've spent with this game, it is one of my favourites, and I just had a blast playing it.
The penultimate entry for my picks on this list would easily be SCOURGEBRINGER, one of the most stylish and kinetic roguelike games that incorporates a fluid platforming element. You are Kyra, a warrior who is destined to cleanse the darkness and the scourge that have seeped into the corners of your reality. For me, SCOURGEBRINGER is such an incredibly enjoyable experience because of how responsive and frenetic it feels to play. Kyra controls with such sublime precision as she jumps, double jumps, dashes, and uses her multiple attacks to clear out a room in no time at all. In all honesty, the actual roguelite elements at play here, such as randomly generated rooms, upgrades, a skill tree, brutal boss fights, and the like, aren't much different from any other roguelite on this list. But SCOURGEBRINGER instead sets itself apart simply by how much fun it is to play moment to moment. Hopping into a room, you can kinetically move from enemy to enemy without touching the ground with the right combination of jumps, dashes, slashes, and long-range attacks. This is one roguelite that is near perfect in terms of responsiveness and controllability. Heck, even if there weren't any of the progression paths, I would still enjoy this game because it plays so well and is a technical marvel. The level of polish and fluidity on display in SCOURGEBRINGER is second to none, but when you do inevitably die, you are taken back to a tree of life that dynamically thrives and produces offshoots depending on your upgrades to the literal skill tree. Yes, it's a cosmetic touch, but it helps bolster the immersion prior to jumping back into the immaculate moment-to-moment gameplay. If you are a roguelite fan in any sense of the genre, you need to try out SCOURGEBRINGER.
My number 2 pick is 20XX. Of course I would put this on the list, being a big fan of the classic Mega Man games. This takes Mega Man style gameplay and puts it in a roguelike. It controls very similar to Mega Man with your running and jumping, shooting in front of you, and wall jumping like in Mega Man X. And you also get a second character to choose who has melee attacks if you prefer. As you reach the end of your randomly generated level, you face a boss. Beating that boss earns you their power, and then you are offered a selection between 3 stages so you can choose which boss to take on next. Keep on going until you die. So beating bosses and gaining their powers, which can be used on other bosses, that sounds very much like Mega Man. But the only thing I can say about this is, it feels easier than a Mega Man game at first. And only at first. It is necessary for this to happen, as I always say, the Mega Man levels always seem impossible at first, but they get easier and easier with each attempt as you learn the level layout. This obviously can't be the case here, as the level layout is different each time. Plus, falling down the pit doesn't instantly kill you, you just lose a bit of health and respawn. This makes the game feel fair while still retaining the Mega Man feel. And although it does feel easier at first, the game does get harder as you progress on each run. But the variety in stages and the choices it gives you to tackle different bosses each time kept making it feel fresh on each attempt, with fun platforming gameplay, little challenge rooms and upgrades that make you feel stronger each time. I really loved playing this one. We don't see a whole lot of new Mega Man games these days, but as we wait for Mega Man 12, I'm happy to stick with this one. And I hope the sequel, 30XX, makes its way to the Switch soon.
And we finally get to my number 1 roguelike game of all time, Dead Cells. To put it quite plainly, Dead Cells is the reason I came to appreciate the roguelite genre, and when done right, can be one of the best types of genre in gaming. Dead Cells was also the very first roguelite that I actually completed, something that fans of the genre know is tough to accomplish on the best of days. Where do I start with this gem of a game? For me, everything boils down to the excellently built moment-to-moment combat and the top-notch level design. Dead Cells starts you out as an amorphous blob who slithers and slides into a new body each go-round, to then up the ante with a control system so perfectly tuned that once you get to grips with the regular attacks, secondary attacks, and 2 special ability slots, it feels like second nature and helps you to feel one with the game. Dead Cells just screams diversity and choice. Many roguelikes claim to feel new and different on each run, but here, the words are backed up by the gameplay and design that developer Motion Twin epically created for this game. Your character goes from a low-level grunt to a powerhouse hero in such a short time frame, and you travel from dingy village streets to petrified swamps to dark and dank castle ramparts. Each encounter in the plethora of stages captures the essence of dynamic and fluid combat with a constant feeling of progression, from finding upgrade scrolls to bolster your HP and damage, to finding blueprints to further increase the diversity of abilities in your arsenal. Each new run is up to you in terms of progression, with the levels laid out in such a way that you can bypass certain areas altogether or take the route you already took before. There are even Metroidvania elements on display here that open up new parts of each stage that might just lead to new bosses or environments altogether. The stages here are created and developed with such care and finesse, and you will simply find yourself naturally exploring every nook and cranny, hoping to stumble across another upgrade scroll or blueprint, or even a morsel of narrative hidden in the recesses of a dark dungeon. Every part of this world feels custom built to encourage exploration. Dead Cells is precisely and exactly the type of genre heavyweight that every player needs to try at least once. Each new run in this game feels unique and new, and even if I died early on, I more than likely found some way to progress, gameplay-wise or story-wise. Dead Cells should be in every roguelite genre's fan's library, full stop. From technically marvelous moment-to-moment movement and combat, to subtle environmental storytelling, to some of the best level design in gaming, Dead Cells is a must-play and is my favorite roguelite game of all time.
There was no other game we would put top of our list for favourite roguelikes. Rogue Heroes is a fantastic top-down Link to the Past Zelda-like game. We have already reviewed it on our channel and wrote a review for Switch Up, both are linked to the description. I love this game so much. From the moment we tried the demo before it came out, I was hooked. The colours, the pixel art, the town building, the upgrading, the exploratory elements, I couldn't put this one down. As you go through the dungeons, each time you die and restart, the layout is different. We noticed there were rooms that did repeat, but enemies may be different, and of course the layout of the dungeon in general would change. This was fantastic to have in the game as it offered variety and you didn't know what you were getting. This was especially great when the door locked behind you and you had to defeat all the enemies in the room before progressing. It made it more exciting. The overworld has Zelda-like progression with side quests to do and gaining items to find your way to the next dungeon. The use of upgrades made your following runs that little bit easier, and it really was a fantastic feeling of progression, making you feel stronger as you kept trying. Not to mention, this game can be played in co-op, online or off. I just love everything about this game and I highly recommend it. It is without a doubt our favourite roguelite on the Nintendo Switch.
So those were our top 10 favourite roguelikes or roguelites on Nintendo Switch. What were your favourites that you saw, or any that you would recommend we play? Let us know in those comments down below, and make sure to hit that subscribe button while you are down there.
And speaking of subscribing, make sure you check out Geoffrey's channel too and give him a sub if you like what you see. So Geoffrey, where can people find you and what can they expect from your channel?
Well, first off, thank you so much Dave and Sophie for having me on your channel for this wonderful collaboration. Rest assured there will be plenty more collaborations between SaveDex Gaming and the Indie Gaming Guild in the future. You can check out my channel on YouTube at the Indie Gaming Guild, where I publish weekly indie game reviews, live streams, monthly content, and so much more. You can also find me on Twitter at Indie Game Guild. I would love to have you over here at the Guild Squad. Thank you again, Dave and Sophie. I really had such a fun time.
Thanks again, Geoffrey, for joining us on this one. We will link his channel in the description, so please check it out. And thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.
Goodbye!